hi Lily Quinn here. Okay, so we're going to do, in this video, we're going to do two seams, closed seam, which is this, raw edge, zigzag, and straight stitch at the bottom. This is the most common seam we have. A seam is a joining of two pieces, two or more pieces. In this case, it's just two pieces. This could be joining the front and back of a garment at the shoulder. This could be a shoulder seam. This could be the side seam of a garment. But at the end of the day, you want to make sure not only is the right side clean, but the wrong side also has neatened edge. Okay, so we don't have fraying. That's the reason we have the zigzag on the edge. Okay, and the open seam is similar. Again, it's straight stitch, but this time the zigzag is individualized. It's on, this is the seam allowance, but we separate them and we do the cleaning of the edge on either side. So we're going to start with our closed seam. Now you want to make sure that you test your machine. Always have a test fabric. Let's see. Test fabric, test. Okay. All right, so you have your stitches, straight stitch. What's going on? Okay, whenever you have three threads like this, one of them is a fake one. So just cut close to your fabric and then you maneuver and one of them will come out. You just pull and it will come right out. What's going on? So here's my two pieces of fabric. I'm going to align the raw edge to the edge of the presser foot. So I don't have to draw a line. If it helps, you can draw a line. But in order to sew straight, you would align the raw edge to the edge of the presser foot. Because the presser foot edge is straight, you have no choice but to sew straight if you keep your eye on the raw edge. Okay, you can back stitch and then continue, just keeping my eye on the edge like that all the way to the end, and I can back stitch as well. And pull in the end, you turn. When you're pulling, don't keep the needle down. Make sure you pull the needle, you turn the hand wheel to bring the needle up before you pull, and then you cut close to the fabric. That way your fabric is neatened and no strands of threads. Okay, so this is our straight stitch. Okay, now we're going to now do zigzag. So I'm putting this zigzag stitch design on, making sure I have the settings correct. Okay, and so I come now. When you're doing edge zigzag, it's a very strong stitch. If you start at the tip here, the machine can eat it up. You don't want that. So you want to give it a little bit of distance away, and then use your hand manually to go off the fabric, on the fabric, off the fabric, on the fabric. Once you have your bearings right, you can just continue on, off, and you feed that to okay, like that. You want your edge zigzag to grab both of them. Beautiful. And then you trim off any raw edges. Okay, this is open seam. As you can see, I've drawn a line. It's a little bigger, so I'm not sewing that on the edge here. I could have pushed it to the line here, but I just want to make things easier. So you can just draw a line. This is about 5/8 of an inch, okay? The distance from the sewing line to the raw edge. It's not quite half an inch, it's 5/8 of an inch. Okay, these tiny squares, 5 of them, that will be the 5/8. All right, and then I position again my needle, making sure the needle is looking at the line, and I stitch a few. Oops, sorry, I still have it on zigzag. Happens. So we move back to straight stitch, and okay, and I do a back stitch and continue on the line, and I use this pin vertically so that I can, or rather perpendicular to the line, so that I can slide it out easily when I get to it. If using clips helps, I'm a pin girl, so I like to use pins. You go back and forth, and that's it. Then you turn, make sure your needle is always up. It allows you freedom to pull, and you cut close to the edge. So this is our straight line or straight stitch first. Then you open. Okay, when will you need an open seam? You need an open seam if you find open seam in a lot of clothes. You know, if you're going to put a button, maybe there's going to be a space, you're going to put a zipper or a button on the other end, you need this side open, and the rest, you know, you need it, the whole seam open. And several others, you know, if you're going to put a side slit on a garment, you need open seam. Now, as you can see, I'm doing what we call finger pressing. You press to make sure, which is literally ironing, okay, just to flatten it out. And now again we change back to zigzag. I just did that, and I grab only the seam allowance. You don't start zigzag at the tip. The machine will eat it up. So you give it a little room and use your hand to start the process. Sorry. On the fabric, off the fabric, on the fabric, off the fabric, until you're comfortable. And then you just continue with the press of your foot pedal. You do not back up with zigzag. It's a strong stitch by itself, so we don't do backing up. Okay, so I just finished the second one. And so you have both sides zigzagged nicely. So this is open seam, and both sides are neatly done. You trim off everything and you label it, and this goes into your binder. You begin to look at garments and you find that there are garments that have open seam and there are garments that have closed seam. So go ahead and practice that.